born and raised in East Baltimore. Born and raised. At a young age, my mother knew and sensed and recognized that I had a love for basketball. You know what I mean? And she really gave me room to develop my skills. But even though she gave me the room, there was still certain do's and certain do nots. Still had to go to school every day, still had to be respectful, still had to do chores around the house, still had to get good grades in school, you know what I mean? Still had to come home and change my school clothes and put my rec clothes on, before I get out of that house, you know what I mean? So basketball was a love of mine from a young age. And like I said, man, I owe a lot to my mom for just giving me that opportunity to just work on my skills. I mean, day and night on the basketball court. I was fortunate to live right across the street from a basketball court, at 250. And, whether the lights were on or the lights were off, man, I'm over there dribbling that ball and putting my shots up. You know what I mean? Yep.
Okay. So I want to make sure just to fully elaborate, you specifically said you was from East Baltimore.
East Baltimore. The Oliver community, grew up in Madison Rec, played in Oliver Rec. Back when I was coming up, we had recs everywhere. Cecil had a rec, Greenmount had a rec, Guilford had a rec, Lafayette had a rec, Chick Webb was a rec. Ralph J. Young, we had multitudes of recreation centers in the community. You know what I mean? But Madison was my home, and Oliver was my second home.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So you spoke about moms being there and pretty much kind of allowed you in the household. Was it just you? You have any brothers?
Oh yeah, man. I had 4 brothers, man, and it's amazing that all 5 of us could hoop, or all 5 of us were athletic, but we never got the opportunity to play out 5, right? So my oldest brother, he went to the military when I was probably around 13 or 14, right? My brother Kenny Hurt, he went to Dunbar. He was a standout at Dunbar. He played football. But maybe a year after he graduated, he was supposed to go to Morgan and play football for Morgan at the time. But he became one of those 13 boys that Peanut King brought those mopeds for. So, he went straight to the streets and was a dope boy. You know what I mean?
We definitely gonna get to that.
No question.
For sure.
So it went like this. So then once he got arrested, he went in, he did 10 years. And while he was in, my oldest brother came home from the military, and then my next brother went in the military. So it was like tag in, tag out, And then by the time I had arrived and came into who I was going to be and showed all my potentials, around 15, 16 years old, my brother came home from prison, and he was just working and things like that. But by the time I became a senior, and then shortly thereafter, I made some bad choices, then I was gone. You know what I mean? So we never got a chance to be at the same time. Then my other brother got killed, and man, it was just one thing after another. But never got a chance to show them Hurt Boys 5 on 5. Yep.
All together.
Yep.
So it's safe to say, like I said, I know we're gonna jump around a little bit for sure, but
okay.
Safe to say coming up, because it sounds like you're the youngest.
I am, baby boy.
You are the youngest,
yep,
and the separation from the next one is what?
He was 6 years older than me.
6 years, and then you got.
And then I didn't find out till I was 18 that I had a sister in between him and I.
Okay.
So she's 3 years older than me. He's 6 years older than me. So between me and my oldest brother is 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So my oldest brother is 13 years older than me.
So when you're young, when being in that same position, my brother's 9 and 10 years older than me. I got 2 older brothers as well, 9 and 10 years older. So being in that position, were they around constantly as when you were young? Like when you said it was just your mom, was your father in the picture?
Yeah, absolutely. No, man. Let me tell you, it's crazy, man, because my wife had just mentioned this to me the other day. She said something about, but you had your father? And I was like, girl, listen, I've never, ever waken up with my dad and my mom in the same place at the same time. Never. It wasn't until I always knew who my dad was, but he was never around. He was never around. And as much success that I had in Baltimore City, in schools and recreations and things like that, Dad never came to any games, never brought me any sneakers, none of that stuff. You know who my male role model was? Calvin Scruggs, who was my best friend. He owns a funeral home, but Calvin Scruggs Sr., he was that male role model in my life at the time, because Calvin Scruggs is my best friend still to this day, and so everything he did, I did right with him and his family.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No,
So Dad was never around.
No.
But my brothers were always instrumental. They gave me that street toughness. They gave me you know, that heart, you know what I mean, made me stay there and fight somebody even when I didn't want to fight or anything like that. So they gave me that toughness. It was just in me. That grit was just in me.
And it was always was it always basketball for all you guys?
Well,
or was it all
like I said,
sports?
my brother Kenny down Dunbar, he played football, but
Okay.
we all
Yeah,
we were all athletic. You know, I don't care what it is. You give me the concept of the game, I'll play it. I remember one time, quick story, at Madison Rec, they needed somebody to represent Madison in a marble tournament. Dude, I never had shot marbles, especially organized. I mean, we mess around with the marbles or whatever, but I went down to the rec. They said they need me to sign up. I signed up, and guess what? Came in third place, right? I won the division for Madison,
Right.
went over to Mount Royal, and I was one win away from going to Atlantic City to represent Baltimore and never played, man. It's just accuracy, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Give me the concept, and I run with it. So I played football, we played baseball, we played handball, we played volleyball, whatever it was, Chad. I'm just an athletic sports guy.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Competition is what it was.
No
You
question,
just
no
was
question.
a competitive person.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so outside of your brothers and your family, were there anybody like, I mean, because you're into the sports, it's obvious that you're into the sports.
Mhm.
Was there anybody professionally that you kind of wanted to push yourself to be like, or was it like a situation where you just kind of using what was around you as your imagination, like your brothers and the neighborhood and playing like those guys, or is any pros in the picture? Or what's the case
You
with
know, in my era, Dr. J was the guy
Right.
in my era. You know what I mean? And I love Larry Bird as well. You know, but I could tell you. Did you mention I went to Dunbar yet? You haven't mentioned it.
No, not yet, but I'm gonna get there.
Okay. Well, I mean,
I'm gonna let you know now. I'm gonna progress it all the way.
Okay,
there. I got
yeah,
you.
because you know, part of my motivation was being in middle school. At that time, it was Lombard Junior High School, Lombard. So I can recall being in the 8th grade. I went over to Dunbar to see an alumni game. And at this time, we talking 1982, 1983, whenever it was that Georgetown had won the national championship, right? So I went over to the game, and I mean, it was jam-packed in there. And just before the big game, they had like a student staff game, and then the big game came on at, you know, afterwards. And man, they cut all the lights out in the gym, and they put the spotlight over in the corner. And they like, 1982, 83 graduate, Reggie Williams, Georgetown Warriors, national championship MVP, Reggie Williams. Man, and he come running up them steps, man, the spotlight like hit him. And I mean, the whole gym just erupted. And at that point, I said, I'm going to Dunbar. Wasn't no ifs, no ands, no buts or suppose. Wasn't no second school, no second or third choices. I'm going to Dunbar, and that's what it was. But prior to that, you know, just watching, you know, Dr. J and them on TV, and you know, we go out there and me and Calvin Scruggs had our little makeshift basketball goals. We even built portable basketball goals, you know, out of wood, and some of them time we even had crates. We even had the spoke basketball rims, take the spokes out and make the basketball courts, things like that. So, you know, we always made them so we can dunk, and we always said, Dr. J, you know, Iceman, you know, Magic, you know, those guys. So they was always inspiring to me, you know, during those 80s.
Okay, yep. Okay. So now kind of switching the landscape a little bit, you spoke on coming up in Baltimore City, 1980s, early 80s. Describe the landscape in your neighborhood and kind of how you were coming up, like what you were looking at when you were walking out your door every day, because it's not like, okay, it sounds good because, you know, every kid, especially when you're a kid, you get to dream, you get to do all of that, but then you got to go outside.
Right.
So when you walked outside, what did you see in the 80s in Baltimore when you were coming up?
You know, it's amazing because, you know, hasn't much changed other than I just think today's kids just don't have the same respect level that we had back in the day for our elders and for our peers. But, I mean, nothing's really changed. You know, when we come outside, you're still subjected to hearing fire trucks, hearing ambulance, hearing police cars, hearing gunshots. Probably not as often as you hear them now, but you're seeing hypodermic needles on the ground, you're seeing crack valves, you're seeing, you know, gelatin caps and pills and stuff on the ground. And you see large crowds of guys, you know, gathering, waiting to get drugs. I mean, it was pretty much the same stuff, man. You know, you subjected to it, and you kind of come like, it's like part of the norm, so to speak, you know? And you just accept it. You know, you just navigate around it. I mean, that's what's happening, and you move about. But The difference is, you know, the way that my mom raised me, you know, whether we were sneaking trying to smoke weed, and here come Miss Bessie coming down the street, and we like, yo, here comes Miss Bessie. So it wasn't no try to cuff it. No, you putting that all the way out. You know what I mean? And hey, Miss Bessie, and helping her take her bags to the house or whatever. You know what I mean? But it was never no flat out disrespect. And it's sad to say that today's guys, you know, they sitting on people's steps, they opening up blunt stuff all on people's steps. You know, they know the family car when they been in the corner. We would get right up there, yo, here comes such, and we roll. Now, they still sit on the people's steps. They got to ask them to move in order for them to get in the house. I just think that respect factor was completely different when I was growing up, but a lot of the same stuff was still going on.